So today we are came here to, I would like to show you something about Xiana Framework. It will be a brief and short introduction. I prepared an application to show the possibilities what we already have. I will talk about the template for it and about the core concept. As you can see, I'm planning to have 3 parts of different sessions. One is about overall in Xiana, about the core concept, how to set up a new project, what we provide for configuring your application, what is the how the application startup look like. Then in the second and the third part, I will show you some code. I asked the ChatGPT for give me a specification for a library booking system, and I already implemented some part of the code for demonstrating to you how easy to work with Xiana. In the second part, I will talk about the role-based access control and its definition, the session handling, migrations, and interceptors overall. And in the third part, I will talk about the request composition, like root definition, actions, models used. All the sessions will be finished with a short Q&A session. So Xiana is a Clojure web development framework. I would say it's backend heavy because the template contains only a pre-configured shadowed CLG base application for single-page applications. I will show you how the architecture is composing and how the requests are composing together. So as the most of the web framework, Xiana is basically is a set of pre-configured and forked libraries for providing configuration, session handling, role-based access control, database connection migration, request coercion, WebSockets. It has a WebSocket router. We'll talk about the routing, and as I mentioned before, it contains a prepared single-page application too. Let me just jump into the code and show you what we got with our line new Xiana LSB command. Basically, we will have a full package and directory set for our source for the backend, directories for the controllers, behaviors, interceptors, models, use, and the core. Same for the front end. It's not the same, but something for the front end. It contains views, event, database, so everything what you need to work with Reframe. And beside that, we have a shared directory for some configuration exchanging and whatever we need, schema definitions. Beside that, we have 3 different configurations and a couple of migrations for common use for the different profiles and the public index HTML. So this is what we get on the with the line new Xiana. Talking about the configuration. Our configuration is based on Yoctos config, which is get extended with some override and providing the possibility to possibility to have default values. Basically, it's using simple EDM file or files, or it's working from the properties or from the Java system environment or from Java properties. All the given configurations are merged with deep merge. Let me show you the basic configuration that we get for development. So it contains a database config, migration config. I will talk about this part later. The session backend configured, a web server. So almost everything what you need. No, it's everything what you need for a live minimal project. It's inside the template. So if I'm just running the line run, then I will get a web server with 3 endpoints already working. Let me show that. The routes itself, the index, the reframe, one for the application and one for the assets, what we have in the resources folder, resources public folder. After the configuration, I would like to show you something about the configuration more. I mentioned the default values and overrides. So if I'm trying to define something like foo with a value like $bez, the configuration will solve it from another keyword. It doesn't matter if it came from an environment variable or from the properties or any given config key. It will get the value what is defined in bez. Let's say it's a foo. In this case, it doesn't found, then you can provide a default value for it, like foo. Let's do it with double O's. So it means it tries to solve it bez, but if it's not found, then it will be foo. It's really handy when you tries to work on your CI, because with this effort, you can configure your database host or port or whatever you need to have it like so with the default value, or your CI mostly has environment variables to configure these values anyway. So this is a way to solve it in Xiana. And in the other hand, about the deep merging, this is our application configuration. And if I need to override something in Xiana Postgres, like the port, then I don't need to provide all the details for the PostgreSQL configuration, but only what I need to override. So the deep merge will handle it like deep merging these values into the original configuration. Okay, so beside the configuration, then as the next step, I would like to talk about the composition of the application with the dependencies. Basically, it's a threading macro, which starts with the configuration, and it's end up in the web server. Everything what is already defined in the order of the thread macro can read what is defined before it. And if your dependencies are implement closable, auto-closable, or the close multi-method from closable map, it helps the development system to restart or close. It can be really handy bit on development time, because you don't need to restart your REPL every time. You don't need to close database connections if you have. It's done by the framework or the template itself. Maybe I will put it in another screen. I'm using this usually. This is how it looks like in practice. So it's reading the configuration, initialize the routes, initializing the role-based access control, connecting to the database, do the migration, and let me start the how it is presentation mode. I'm already exit. Okay, so I'm already in presentation mode. So it's initialized the session backend and finally starts the web server. This is all from the template. You don't need to touch it. You will have this application up and running in a couple of minutes, because you only need to start the development. PostgreSQL. The template has a Docker Compose file for it. You need to download the npm dependencies for your front end. Then you can start your application and it will work. And right now we are just in the first QA session. So if anyone has any question, then I'm ready to answer it.
There's one in the Q&A section from Joe asking how this compares to other frameworks such as Django. Now, while you're thinking about that, we recently did a comparison including Django and Bullet Train and a couple of other things, which we will publish some blog post on that. At the moment, we're still going through the process of analyzing that. But maybe you've got something you could tell about that, Krisztian.
I have no experience with Django, I will be honest. I've worked as a Java developer before, and I have some experience with Spring, which is a really bloated framework for doing anything in Java. Everything in Java, you can't use it for everything. The first difference from it, it's easier to use. It's everything is visible. Nothing implicit happens. Everything is explicitly said and built at your hand. So basically, the idea is the MVC concept. This is what we wanted to implement in a way, but we tried to keep it simple as it possible. So we got interceptor chain, but we didn't hide it under the hood. I don't know if it's if I'm answered your question.
Go, Joe.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. You have answered my question partly. I think that simplicity is a key and lightweight is a key, as far as I've been reading in the documentation. And with the same framework, could it be used for mobile, or no? It's just only purely a web.
Actually, you can use it for mobile because most of the parts are the backend. So if you are thinking about a progressive web application, then you should provide something for backend, and this is mostly for backend. But this is the same for the front end, because with
I see.
Yeah, because progressive web apps are a thing, but it's not a native web mobile application.
So it compares parallel to Django framework. Okay, I have to be excused because I'm just about to jump into another meeting, but I'm very, very grateful and I love it. But I'll be following you very closely and what you publish. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thierry, you have a question too.
Sorry for the background noise, and if Joe is leaving, I'm not sure if it's relevant, but Django, Rails, frameworks like this basically build the whole ecosystem, and Xiana is way closer to the dev stack. So the underlying libraries like Muntaya for content negotiation, Honeyseeker, etc., are all exposed. JDBC next, and so on. So all of these things are exposed. And if you have experience with quite widespread, I would say, mainstream libraries in the Clojure ecosystem, you already know maybe 80% of Xiana Framework.
Yep, you're right.
Thank you, Jerry. You had another question about what we were seeing. Is it all pre-generated from the template? How much of it did you add, Krisztian?
It's almost the same. What is? Let me check it. I would say it is. So the template in the last couple of days should be generate this one, except I'm already executed the npm installation, and yeah, what you can see is the project files itself. So basically, yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. I've posted the link to the template repo in the chat, so if anybody wants to check that out. We also have, this is the Leiningen version. We also have a depcdn version, but that's much newer and not as battle tested as the Leiningen one yet.
Yeah, it's if I'm right, it's still under development, but
it's ready to play with, but it's not been it's not been undergone any hard testing yet.
Okay, then anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay, then let me continue. Talking about role definition. Okay, before I'm going to talk about role definition and the tiny airbag, I would like to show you something what I let me go here. Not reset. Oh, Jesus. No, I almost dropped my project. So, as I mentioned before, I'm asked ChatGPT for a library booking system specification, and I collected. It's a really long story. I collected all the actors, resources, and actions from it, and yeah, it's still valid specification for a library booking system. And I created rules for a table for the applied rules, what kind of user, on what kind of resources, what actions can do. And from this table, I created the def config, this role set, which is basically just collects all the resources, all the actions grouped by the resources, all the roles, let's say a user, a member, on the user's resource can read, and the restriction on it can read only own set of records. Same for the staff. The staff can create, read, update, suspend, and delete all the user resources or whatever. Same for the resources and the reservations. And we have notifications when the staff can read own notifications and create for the user. So based on this set of resources and actions, I prepared our not Discord, but then this one. Okay, it's not. I'm not here yet. So for role definition, we're using the tiny airbag library, which has the easy definition of resources, actions, and rules, as I showed you before. You can use builder functions instead of the Clojure map. It supports inheritance, and as a permission check, it returns an easy to use result because it's a set of restrictions, so you can easily match it with calling the set itself. That's all from this part, and let's go next to the session handling. Session is a really important part of our web application. This is where you can store your users' activities, like products it visited, the basket it has. Even the user is not logged in to your system, you can store information from the user activities. It's a freely changeable atomic or atom map or a JSON format if it's stored in the persistent database. Recently, we added the GWT token support, which enables you to share, exchange some information about the user between the front end and back end. Without the GWT, you have only a UUID to identify the session itself, which can be sent in the headers, which is sounds good if you have European customers where they can just disable the cookies. You can still store some information in the backend about the visitor while the browser has the same session ID. How it looks like, it's a good example for the interceptor itself. So the guest session interceptor, it's basically it's trying to fetch the session from the state based on the header UUID. But if it falls, then it creates a new session for a user which has a guest role. It gets a session ID and a user ID for process it later. And as all interceptors may have, it has a leave branch, which is just storing the session what we created here or changed it on the execution. Sorry, I need to flip a bit. Yeah, this is how our session handling is working. Our migration system is based on Migratus. So Besides using Line Migratus plugin, we decided to use it directly to have some other options like profile-based configuration, and we forked Migratus to have the option for multiple migration sources. I'm always missing this window. Let me jump back to the configuration. So right here you can see we have two migration folders for Migratus. It enables to have different data seed for different profiles. So if I don't want to provide a test user into my production environment, this is the easiest way. I'm just placing everything what is about the structure of the database into the common, and everything which is seeding it into migrations, dev, test, or production, then always the right migrations will be applied. Yes, next I would like to talk about the interceptors, just the theory, because I'm already show you an example. Interceptors are a pair of function for the same functionality, like we seen it for the session handling. Our interceptors are composable in two ways, like the interceptor chain is composable too, and an interceptor itself is composable too. First means if you have a set of interceptors defined for a router, not a router for your application, a default set of interceptors, then you can change it on router or routing level. And in the other hand, the interceptor can be changed with simple associations, like I like this interceptor, but I want to but I want it to work like in other way when on the leaf branch, and you are able to just replace the function with associating a new one. All our interceptors are capable to handle its own errors. If it not happens, then the error handling, it goes, so it's a bit a tricky one. This is only one place which usually get more time to get. So the error handling, look for the interceptor chain itself, not for one interceptor, is a bit tricky. You can find the documentation about it in the web page. Basically, it starts the execution from the beginning of the interceptor chain to find an error handler. It's sometimes hard to get it, but it's worth to read it. Yeah, as I mentioned before, it's modifiable on root definition. And one more thing to add here, we have two set of interceptors with two different execution places for different cases. One set of interceptors is running around the routing and matching, and the second one is executed around our action. I don't need to explain the second one, but the first one maybe should be explained a bit more. For example, you have a front-end application with different tests. Then you should, the easiest way to handle it, to collect them and change the URL for pointing to the index HTML to the right place. and it's the easiest way to have a root interceptor, which is change the URL in the execution. And with this mechanism, you can simplify your front-end routing or back-end routing. Let's say it's mostly about the back-end routing. Basically, that's it for the second session. So let's see if we have any questions regarding this part.
I don't see any in the Q&A, but if anybody wants to chime in now, feel free. And if you want to check out the documentation that Krisztian was talking about, I'll paste the link to the framework here. There's quite extensive readmes and tutorials and guides that you'll find linked from this page.
And most of it doesn't merge yet, so into the master. But yeah, it
makes even more. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, looks like we don't have any questions right now. Then let me continue with the last part, which is about how we are compositing our request handlers. So the request handler is a composition of interceptors, including the access control, the routing, the actions, the model, the view, and the side effects. With this mechanism, we are able to create pure actions, models, and views. All the side effects are excited into the interceptors. Even if we're talking about database readings or writing, even if we're talking about sending notifications, it's all excited into interceptors. So most of the code you need to write can be a pure functional function. Let me just show you. Let me check out the final stage of the half of the application. This is the controller interceptors, the default interceptors I defined in this example. It contains everything what you need. Error response, interceptor parameter reading, parameter coercion, session handling, rendering the view, handling with side effects, reading database, dealing with access control. These interceptors are executed all around the actions we define in the routes. So if you see a root definition, it looks like a ring root definition. It's not. It's technically it's a rated, but the framework extends the rated root to work like a ring root definition. This is why we can have parameters inside the method definition and just outside of the method definition for the root itself. At the end, when we're calling this endpoint with this method, these two parameters will be merged together. So the path and the form will applied to the request. This is where we can interfere with the default interceptors. If I'm saying let's put an interceptor inside the interceptors, it will mean it goes to the most bottom of the interceptor chain, so it will be executed last before the action and first after the action. I have the opportunity to have something like around, which means it goes to the top of the interceptor change. I can say accept something, and then the interceptor chain will skip the given function. And if I want to override the default interceptors, then I could use a simple vector of interceptors to create a totally different interceptor change, what is defined for default. So this is how the, let me just revert it. This is how the interceptors are composable in this way. Let me show you a pure function as an action. As you can see, it's basically only associating functions into the state. Even the model itself is just associating the database query into the request state. So all the actions we have is a pure pure function without any side effects. Here, so depending on the previously executed interceptors, it can have different state, but it's always, the response is always depends on the state of the application. So all the views, the restriction functions, and the models are just pure functions. Even the restriction function is it, because, well, it's just if it's not seen, but this is do the same. It's just associating something into the state, what will be referred by the framework itself. So this is how application with Xiana builds up. Basically, on application state startup, we are reading the configuration, setting all the dependencies, injecting all of them. We are providing some application configuration. We are setting up the root definitions, creating the different actions, and exit and extending or removing some interceptors. And at the end, we got a fully working application. And with pure functions, and the side effects are excited into the interceptors. So in the routing, as I showed you before, we can define the route-specific interceptors and overrides. We can define the actions, the permissions, the schema definition. In the action, we are defining how the rest of the interceptors are working. We're composing the model, the view, the restriction function, other side effects. And in the model, we are just injecting the vector of the queries, and the result of the queries with a simple destructuring, we can reach it in the view. And the view is rendered the database result set to be sent as response. And right now, we are finished with the third part. So if any question came up, then let me know.
Okay. There's no more in the Q&A section, but feel free to jump in.
Yes, hello. Thank you. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the front end part. I know you said it was back end heavy. Is the front end just this implementation of Reframe, or do you add other things to it?
Let's say it's a preferred Reframe in a way. It has the shadow CLG pre-configured and has a. Let me just jump to the other core. It has a initialization and a default main panel for starting to work with a Reframe application. Basically, we didn't touch it, we didn't extend it. It's just it's just contained by the template to help you to start to work with Reframe. But there is no restrictions for it. It's up to you how you working with Reframe. If we are just providing the starting point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, options to that is something we're hoping to add into the templates in the future. So you'll be able to choose different front ends and get at least some start for them. But at the moment, it is just Reframe. That's the templates, of course. The framework, it's independent.
Yep, basically. But if you want to extend the framework with something like HTML or some backend rendered front end, then it's easy because you only need to write one interceptor which converts your data into the right structure.
And in the template with the interceptor, do you handle WebSockets? I saw WebSockets go by, but
I didn't plan to show anything about the WebSockets for this session, but if you open the GitHub page, you can see examples like there is a CLI chat, which is implements a WebSocket chat server, and you can just play around with it. It has it's utilized the WebSocket router, which came with the framework, and you can define a same you can define your routing for WebSocket call like a rated route. So it's I believe it's a really helpful thing to add, but this section is not about the WebSockets.
Oh, thank you. I was just curious.
Okay, any more questions from anyone? If not, many thanks, Krisztian. That was
my pleasure.
Very good. Actually, I have a question.
Yeah,
your
please.
Presentation was really quite slick. Could you tell us a little bit about how you did that?
The presentation. Okay, so I spent half a day to figure out which software will be nice or fit for my imagination and easy enough to use, but have something like when I can create some mind mapping or any other magic with a static page. But I didn't find anything, so I created a Clojure script application with Figwheel for navigating in one SVG file. Looks like yep. So the presentation itself is one SVG file, and I just added some animation parts, focus parts to it, where I can just navigate in and etc. So yeah, it's a, let's say, simple Clojure script application, but people don't know how hard to navigate into the SVG, which is loaded from a file. Yeah, it had its hard moments to figure out how to do it, but at least I believe it's really nice too. So yeah, thank you for asking.
Is that code worth a look at? Is it? Did you publish it?
I believe I will push it into the Xiana repo soon, because
Okay,
I did it in my working hours, you know. So it belongs to the company.
Yeah. All right. Yes, thank you very much, Krisztian.
Thank you. Thank you all to come. It was a really nice experience for me, at least.
Thank